Right now, millions of Americans are waking up with the same question on their mind. Why is my payment late? Why hasn't my money shown up yet? And is something changing behind the scenes? If you rely on Social Security, whether that's retirement, SSDI, SSI, or survivor benefits, this is not something you can afford to ignore. Over the past few days, banks across the country have quietly begun adjusting how they process incoming government deposits. Not because Social Security is running out of money, not because payments are being cut, but because new bank rules are starting to take effect and they're already creating confusion. Some people are seeing their deposits arrive later than usual. Others are being asked to verify information they've never had to confirm before. And a small but growing number of recipients are reporting temporary holds on their funds. Now, before you panic, listen closely. This isn't a headline grabbing announcement from the Social Security Administration. There was no press conference, no warning letter mailed out to seniors. That's what makes this so unsettling. The changes aren't coming directly from Social Security. They're coming from the banking side, from compliance updates tied to federal regulations that most people never hear about until it hits their wallet. Banks like Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and several regional credit unions are updating internal systems. These systems handle how federal payments are received, verified, and released into your account. And here's the part most people don't realize. Even if Social Security sends your money on time, your bank can delay when you actually see it. That's the gap where problems are starting to appear. Across online forums and local news reports, retirees are sharing similar stories. My deposit normally comes through every Wednesday without fail. This week, it didn't show up. I reached out to my bank immediately, and they told me the payment is currently under review. They mentioned something about a new policy being implemented, but nobody could actually explain what that policy involves or why it's suddenly affecting my account. And that's exactly how misinformation gains momentum and spreads like wildfire. Some people are saying benefits are getting slashed across the board. Others are claiming deposits are being redirected or stopped entirely without warning. None of that is accurate. None of it is based on fact. But the anxiety is absolutely real, and it's affecting millions of people right now. Here's what's actually going on and why you need to understand this clearly. What's happening isn't connected to your eligibility status, your employment record, or the amount you're supposed to receive each month. It has everything to do with new requirements for how banks must process and handle government payments. And this isn't impacting just a handful of people in isolated cases. If you're getting Social Security through direct deposit, which covers more than 99% of all recipients across the country, these changes might affect you in some capacity, even if the impact isn't immediately obvious or noticeable right away. You might be sitting there wondering, I've been collecting Social Security for years without any problems. Why is this happening now? That's exactly the question you should be asking, because what comes next may catch you completely off guard, and it clarifies why these changes are being implemented so quietly without major announcements, and why the timing is more critical than you might think at first glance. Let's get into what's really taking place behind the scenes, because once you understand how this entire system operates from start to finish, the whole picture becomes crystal clear and everything starts making sense. Social Security doesn't just flip a switch and have money instantly appear in your account like magic. Every single payment goes through multiple stages in a complex chain. First, the Treasury Department authorizes the release of funds on the scheduled payment date. Then those funds move through the federal payment infrastructure, which is a sophisticated network of financial institutions. And finally, your bank receives that deposit and determines when and how it becomes accessible to you for withdrawal or use. That final stage is where the new regulations apply, and it's causing the issues people are experiencing. Throughout the past year, federal regulators have been requiring banks to strengthen their procedures for handling incoming government payments of all types. The stated purpose is to minimize fraud, prevent unauthorized account access, and stop illegal diversion of benefits to fraudulent accounts. In theory, it makes perfect sense and sounds like good policy. In practice, it creates complications and delays that real people have to deal with. Beginning late this quarter, banks received instructions to revise their compliance procedures for recurring federal deposits that come in monthly. That includes Social Security retirement benefits, SSDI, SSI, and veterans benefits, among others. These revisions focus heavily on identity confirmation processes, account activity surveillance systems, and payment release schedules that determine when money becomes available. Here's what that translates to in everyday language that anyone can understand. Banks now have to perform additional verification checks on certain accounts before releasing government funds to customers. Not every single account, not every single payment, but enough that people are starting to notice and ask questions. If your account displays unusual activity, recent modifications, or information that doesn't match up with previous records, the system might flag it for review. When that occurs, your deposit doesn't vanish into thin air or get canceled. It gets paused temporarily, sometimes for a few hours, sometimes for a full day, and in uncommon situations, even longer than that. Major banks like Chase and Wells Fargo have already acknowledged internally that these verifications are completely automated processes. That means no actual person reviews your account initially when it gets flagged. A computer algorithm does the checking, and computers aren't concerned about whether your rent payment is due tomorrow or if you need money for groceries today. Now, here's what nobody is discussing openly in the media or in official statements. These policy changes didn't arrive with any major public announcement or press release because technically, Social Security itself didn't modify anything on their end. Your benefit amount remains exactly the same as before. Your payment schedule remains exactly the same as it's always been. The responsibility quietly transferred to the banks to handle these verification processes. And that's why Social Security representatives are informing callers who express concern we process the payment on schedule as required. From their standpoint, that's completely accurate and truthful. But from your standpoint, if the funds aren't actually in your account when you check, it seems like something has gone wrong somewhere in the system, and you're not mistaken about that feeling or concern. Federal payment records indicate that even a 24-hour holdup impacts millions of households when deposits are this substantial and this widespread across the entire country. A single day's delay might not sound particularly significant at first mention until it directly affects groceries you need to buy, prescriptions you need to fill, or a utility payment that depends entirely on that deposit arriving on time. Now, before you become too concerned or too relieved about this situation, here's a crucial point to understand that will help put things in perspective. These regulations aren't creating permanent delays or long term problems. They're conditional verifications that happen under specific circumstances. The majority of payments process without any complications whatsoever, going through exactly as they always have. But for those accounts that do get flagged by the automated systems, the experience can feel abrupt and confusing, leaving people worried and uncertain about what's happening. And that's why some people are being required to verify their identity once again, even though they've been receiving benefits for years. Others are being instructed to update their personal information in the bank's system. A small number are getting calls or emails from their bank asking questions they've never encountered before in their years of banking. That's not happening randomly or by accident. That's the new protocol in action, working exactly as designed. But here's something most headlines won't reveal to you, something important to know. The people most impacted aren't always who you'd assume or expect. Now, let's discuss who is genuinely being affected the most because this is where things become deeply personal and hit close to home. If you're collecting Social Security retirement benefits and your banking details haven't changed in years, remaining completely stable and consistent, you might never encounter an issue or even notice anything different. Numerous payments are processing exactly as expected, flowing through without any problems whatsoever. But for others, particularly right now during this transition period, the situation is quite different and more challenging. People receiving SSI and SSDI are experiencing the highest rate of temporary holds and delays. That's not because those programs are unreliable or unstable in any way. It's because those accounts undergo more frequent scrutiny by banking systems due to income limits that must be monitored, balance variations that occur month to month, and account activity characteristics that trigger algorithmic reviews. Survivor benefit recipients are also appearing in reports at higher rates, especially those who recently changed banks or modified their direct deposit information within the last few months. And pay close attention to this detail because it's important. Even something as straightforward as updating your mailing address with the bank, adding a joint account holder to your existing account, or establishing a new linked savings account can activate an automated verification process. To the bank's computer system, That registers as a data modification that requires review. To you, it's ordinary living and normal life activities, but the system interprets it differently and applies its rules accordingly. Now, picture this scenario in your mind. Your deposit typically arrives on the second or third Wednesday each month, like clockwork. You've already arranged your expenses based on that expected timing: rent, groceries, medications, utility bills. Then Wednesday arrives and nothing appears in your account when you check. You check again Thursday morning with growing concern. Still nothing there. You contact Social Security, and they inform you the payment was processed and sent on time according to their records. You contact your bank next, and they inform you it's being reviewed and held temporarily. That uncertainty, that waiting period between those two conversations is where stress escalates dramatically and anxiety takes over. And here's the most critical thing to grasp about this entire situation: this does not indicate your benefits are being decreased or reduced in amount. It does not indicate your payments are being terminated or canceled permanently. It does not indicate Social Security is reclaiming your money or taking it back. These are processing holds, not benefit determinations or decisions about your eligibility. But the consequence is still completely real and impacts your daily life. A brief delay can result in a missed payment to a landlord, an overdraft charge from your bank, a late fee on a bill, or worse, going without necessities while you wait for the hold to clear. Now, here's something that might surprise you and isn't widely known. Banks aren't obligated to notify you right away when a government deposit gets flagged by their systems. Some choose to do so, some don't bother. In numerous instances, the first indication you receive is simply that the money hasn't arrived yet when you check your balance. And that's why speculation spreads so rapidly online through social media and community forums. People begin posting that payments are being reduced, that benefits are ending permanently, that new legislation was enacted overnight, changing everything. None of that is accurate or true, but the fear feels legitimate and justified because the experience of not receiving your money is legitimate and real. What's also shifting is how banks are communicating with customers during this transition. More recipients are getting automated emails or app alerts asking them to verify identity information, update contact details in the system, or acknowledge updated account terms and conditions. If you disregard those messages or put them off for later, your deposit could remain on hold longer than necessary, extending your wait time. That's the minor detail most people overlook or don't realize is important. Now, here's the encouraging news that should help ease your concerns. Most of these holds are cleared quickly once verification is finished and processed. In numerous cases, the funds are released the same day once you respond. In others, within 24 to 48 hours at most. But timing is important because as these new regulations continue being implemented across all banking institutions, staying informed becomes your strongest defense against problems. Here's what you should do immediately to ensure your Social Security payments aren't held up unnecessarily. First, verify your bank account information is current and accurate. Make certain your details are up to date, including your address, phone number, and any connected accounts. Even a minor discrepancy between records can trigger a verification hold. Second, watch carefully for any communications from your bank. Emails, texts, or app notifications requesting you to confirm your identity are genuine and legitimate. Respond right away. Don't disregard them or delay. Third, if your deposit doesn't show up on the expected day you've come to rely on, contact your bank without delay. Ask specifically whether a verification or review hold is active on your account. Most problems are resolved promptly once you confirm your details and answer any questions. Fourth, don't stress or panic if you experience a delay. Social Security has transmitted your payment as scheduled. Your benefits aren't being reduced or eliminated. These are administrative delays, not reductions or cancellations of your benefits. Now, here's the reassurance you deserve and need to hear. Even with these new banking regulations being rolled out, the overwhelming majority of payments are still processing on schedule without any issues. Most recipients will never detect any change in their experience. For those who do experience problems, it's typically a temporary pause that resolves within a day or two at most. Mark your calendars and remain vigilant during this transition period. The upcoming months are when banks are completely implementing these updates across all their systems, and being proactive now can prevent stress later when you need your money. Remember, knowledge is strength and power. By understanding these changes clearly and taking a few straightforward steps, you can make sure your money arrives safely and on time every month. Social Security continues to be a dependable, stable program that millions rely on. Your benefits are protected by law, and these modifications don't alter the support you depend on every month to live. Stay informed about developments, monitor for updates regularly, and prioritize your finances because being prepared today prevents worry tomorrow. Subscribe to stay informed and make certain you never miss an important update that could affect you. Your money, your benefits, your peace of mind. Safeguard them all carefully. Because when it comes to Social Security, being informed is the best way to stay ahead of problems before they start.